Ever feel like the IMF, that massive organization that can literally make or break economies, is kind of a black box?
Yeah, like the shadowy group making huge decisions that impact us all, but like, who are they really and how do they actually work?
Right. Well, good news is you send in some seriously interesting sources on the IMF. So today, we're cracking it open. We're doing a deep dive into how the IMF actually works, where it stumbles, and why, any of this should matter to you.
Yeah, it's easy to feel powerless when these big institutions seem so far removed from our daily lives.
Totally. So we're going to bring it down to earth. And get this, we're talking about a real blend of sources here, like historical analyses to, get this, insider accounts. We even got our hands on some pretty sharp critiques.
Oh, juicy. This is going to be good.
Get ready for a wild ride. Now, I want to start with something that might seem a little unexpected. A report by Jens Weidmann. And no, this isn't about getting bogged down in bureaucratic jargon, I promise.
Okay, good, because I was a little worried.
What's fascinating about Weidmann's report is the human side of the IMF it exposes, a side we rarely get to see.
Right, it's easy to think of these large institutions as like, well, impersonal machines. But at the end of the day, they're run by people driven by internal cultures and susceptible to, well, human failings.
And let me tell you, what Weidmann reveals is pretty startling. Just think about this retaliation against whistleblowers, bullying even, harassment within the IMF. It paints a picture of a workplace where people are terrified to speak up when things go wrong.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Can you imagine that kind of environment? Being too afraid to raise concerns at your own job?
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you think, if this is how the IMF treats its own employees like their own people, it makes you wonder how that might, translate into their treatment of entire nations relying on their assistance.
It's like a giant red flag, right? Makes you question their judgment, their ability to handle power responsibly.
Precisely. And that leads perfectly into this recurring theme we see throughout your sources, the IMF being accused of, well, meddling in the affairs of other countries.
It's like that friend who always has the answer, even when no one asked, and just ends up making things worse.
Right.
Okay, so let's unpack that meddling a bit, shall we? One of the sources you guys sent in, Jamie Martin's book, The Meddlers, really dives deep into this whole meddling thing. He argues that to really, truly understand the IMF, we got to go way back. We're not just talking about economics here, right? We're talking about, the legacy of empire.
Right, like their history kind of precedes them.
Exactly.
Martin suggests that the IMF, kind of inherited this, well, a certain approach to international relations.
Yeah.
One where powerful nations, they step in, they intervene in the affairs of weaker ones.
Yeah.
Often with, the best intentions, of course, but not always the best outcomes, right?
It's like those old movies where the wealthy family swoops in to help this struggling town, but their ideas are totally out of touch, right? Totally out of touch with the reality on the ground. So how does that play out with the IMF? What does that actually look like?
Well, think about some of these examples from your sources, right? The structural adjustment programs,
Yeah.
the Asian financial crisis, Argentina, Greece, I mean, each one kind of shows the IMF stepping in with these really strict conditions.
Oh, totally, attached to their loans and their aid packages.
Right. And this gets to a really, really big question. Is this kind of international intervention actually helpful? Or is it, does it undermine a country's ability to govern itself, to make its own decisions?
Yeah, it makes you wonder who gets to call the shots, right? Whose interests are really being served in these situations. It's easy to just slap a bad guy label on the IMF. But, our sources, they offer a more nuanced picture. You know what I mean? They highlight some pretty deep-rooted issues within the organization itself. Where do we even begin?
Well, one major criticism that comes up repeatedly is this whole idea of ideological bias. It's like having a broken compass that always points in one direction, even if it's leading you, off a cliff.
Right. It's like no matter what the situation is, they're going to give the same advice, the same solutions. Yeah. It's that one-size-fits-all approach to economics where they push the same policies, like austerity measures,
Yeah.
even when those policies might not be the best fit for that country and their situation at that time.
Exactly. And then there's this whole groupthink problem. Right?
Oh, classic.
It's classic. Nobody wants to rock the boat. Nobody wants to challenge the prevailing wisdom, even when it's clear that they're heading down the wrong path. You can see how easily that could lead to some major blind spots.
Okay, so we got ideological bias, groupthink, what else? Oh, and don't even get me started on the lack of accountability. It's who's actually responsible when things go wrong? It's this big, complex organization with these elaborate decision-making processes, and it can feel like no single person is ever truly held accountable. Especially when their decisions have a real human cost, like we saw with the Greek debt crisis.
Yeah, and you're hitting on another major point of contention here that's highlighted in a lot of your sources, the IMFs, like over-reliance on economic models.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like they're trying to predict the weather with only a thermometer.
Yeah.
Like you're going to miss a lot of other crucial information that way, right?
Right, like trying to understand a whole country's economy by just like looking at numbers on a spreadsheet. You're going to miss the human side of things, the social and political factors that play a role.
Absolutely. And that's actually where the work of Stephen Turner comes in. This is another source you were curious about. Now, Turner, he doesn't write specifically about the IMF.
Okay.
He's interested in how knowledge and expertise, in general, can go wrong within organizations.
Okay, so how does this connect back to our deep dive on the IMF?
Well, Turner, he argues that organizations can become so specialized, so siloed into their specific area of expertise that they lose sight of the bigger picture. He calls this the fragmentation of knowledge. So imagine like each department laser focused on their own, little piece of the puzzle.
Their own little corner of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But nobody's talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's connecting the dots. And what's worse, they might not even realize that they're missing something crucial. And this is where this lack of interdisciplinary dialogue comes in. Turner really stresses the importance of different fields, actually talking to each other, collaborating. So in the context of the IMF, imagine if you had, the economists, the ones building those models, never actually sat down with, like sociologists or anthropologists.
They'd be missing out on valuable insights into how those policies might actually play out in the real world.
Exactly. Affecting real people.
Yeah.
Their lives, their livelihoods.
Right.
And if you connect that back to everything we've been discussing, right, the IMF's history of meddling, the criticisms of ideological bias, the over-reliance on models, it starts to paint, I think, a pretty clear picture of how these problems can arise and persist.
It's like their own internal structure, their own way of thinking about the world could be creating these blind spots that prevent them from seeing the full impact of their decisions. It makes you wonder, if the experts can get it wrong, how do we navigate this complex world with all of its challenges, right? I mean, that's something to ponder. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the IMF's origins to its current challenges, from accusations of meddling to internal struggles with bias and accountability, and we've just scratched the surface. But here's the takeaway I hope you'll walk away with. Expertise alone, it isn't enough. We need to be aware of our own biases, be open to different ways of seeing the world, and honestly be willing to admit when we've gotten things wrong. If a massive institution like the IMF can stumble, it's a good reminder for all of us to stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and never stop learning. And hey, if you're hungry for more, definitely check out the sources that sparked this whole conversation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.